No, probably not, but it's anyway. The Michael, I thought of starting to sort of introduce you, but and I asked my friend Claude, and I did use the right prompt, I'm sure, because she gave me quite a nice sort of setup. But then I thought, okay, no, it's probably more about a practical thing and something that we all battle with, and we battle to not get AI to hallucinate and not to sort of, for us to be caught out. Like I saw the past week again, some article that appeared, and at the bottom the AI prompt included, so someone just forgot to
extreme laziness.
Yeah. But so, without further ado, let me introduce Michael. Mike, maybe if you want to sort of just, I know you've got a background that started with Growcott Mail. I think that's where we first sort of like met each other. But for the past year or two, you sort of specializing in a few others. I also sort of gathered from Kate's letter that you assisting a few publishers on the DNTF program as well, which, I mean, but anyway, yeah. It's thanks for sort of spending the time with us. I think we will definitely learn a lot. I think this is an industry that changes so quickly that the knowledge you had 6 months ago is just about worthless now. You have to sort of adapt, and yes, you have to sort of continuously learn. Otherwise, you just get left behind. But anyway, over to you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much, Anton, and hello everyone. Thanks very much for joining. I know there's a lot going on. Yes, I was at Growcott's Mail, as Anton said. Sure, that was around 2012 now, so quite a while ago. I was the digital online editor there. After that, I went to the SABC in Joburg, working with Isak Minnar. Many of you will know. And then I came back to Cape Town, and I started Social Weaver, which is a digital media training company. Been working on that since about 2016. I spent 5 years with Internews until recently, which is a global media development nonprofits, but they got caught up in the funding fiasco with USAID. So that journey came to an end, and now I'm sort of back just doing social media training, Social Weaver training. Currently involved in the DNTF with 5 of the first round grantees, so that's been great. Also, been involved in some AIP trainings over the years, and been keeping my eyes and ears open as to all things AIP on the sustainability group, and lately been quite fascinated, as many people have been, by the evolution of AI and how we can use it responsibly, smartly, effectively, as journalists, not losing sight of the main sort of pillar of journalism, which is trust, and that has always been the case and will always be the case. So we can't afford to lose audience trust by using AI irresponsibly. So I'm hoping that this will be quite an interactive, dynamic session. I've got a couple of slides, but that's not really the basis. We're going to a lot into demos, showing you things in ChatGPT and in Google Notebook LM. But I do have these slides as the kind of the basis for what we're going to be doing. So if anyone obviously wants to jump in at any time, that's completely fine. Just let me know. I'm working with one screen here, so I might not be able to see the chat or any raised hands, but just unmute if there's anything that you need to say or ask. So just jumping into sort of an intro here. Using AI effectively requires a new kind of philosophy, mindset, and a metaphor that I kind of often use when doing training on this stuff is not to see the AI as some scary beast, hallucinating beast in the sky, but rather just see it as an unintimidating kind of junior colleague or intern that you've brought in, and they're super intelligent and super efficient, but at the end of the day, they are junior and they can't make the same editorial decisions as you can. So the AI is really, really fast, faster than any human. Can read through hundreds and thousands of pages of PDFs, spreadsheets, anything in seconds. So that's really, really powerful. But they are, at the end of the day, still naive. They can work faster with the data, with the info, but they don't really know the context of the data and the info and the nuances of your audiences and what they need and what they want. So that's something to just bear in mind. Your job as a human in the newsroom is not to let the AI run in the newsroom, but to manage the AIs as kind of interns or junior colleagues in that newsroom. So, this is an unending truth, hopefully, that there'll always have to be a human in the loop. At least that's what seems sensible today. Who knows what the story will be in 20 years' time, if we'll have just bots writing content for other bots to read and distribute, who knows. But for today, it's really important that we have the human in the loop and the human filter when publishing content. So the job of the AI it's generative AI, right? So it generates, it kind of pulls together the data points that it has, and it generates output based on that. But it's got no contextual awareness. It's got no discernment. It's got no wisdom. It's got no sixth sense, if you like. Humans have that kind of stuff. So there's still yes, it might seem like AI is taking your job, but it's actually not, and it's super important to maintain your human presence there as the human editor. So things that you might be wondering, okay, well, if AI is so powerful and we should be using it, but it's so dangerous, then how do we know what to do with it and what not to do with it? So if we sort of categorize these things broadly into green lights, go ahead, do it, fine, and red lights, AI shouldn't do this stuff. This is human only stuff. It's kind of useful to look at it like that. And this is where a lot of people trip up. But some examples of things that it's fine to use AI for is sort of routine administration, scheduling calendar appointments, which you can now do directly in Gemini, for example. Massive document summarization, and we'll look at that in a bit with IDPs and so forth in Notebook. Initial copy editing or word wrangling, if you want to call it that, but not final publishing. Audio transcription, it's excellent at that. You can take a YouTube video and pop it into Notebook LM, and within seconds, you've got your full transcripts and you can query that transcript. For example, Chris was at an event last night, the Press Club, and there was quite a lot of talking speeches. So, traditionally you would have to have a notebook and a pen and write stuff down and key quotes and etc. and request the full transcript maybe. But now, since that was live streamed and that video is now on YouTube, you can actually just grab the full text of what was said as your base document within seconds. AI is really, really good at that. And things like generating headline variations, where you can choose which one you think might work best. So that's what it's the kind of editorial tasks that it's pretty good at. And on the right is what it's not good at. So, original voice and narrative style. It's still up to you to finesse your language. Complex claim detection. It's pretty risky to try and use it for that. Interviewing human sources. Still a good old journalist has to go out and speak to, or pick up the phone and speak to a human and get that research done. AI can't, do that just yet. Contextualizing sensitive local events. Yep, AI simply does not understand the dynamics of a town hall meeting 10 kilometers outside of Komani on issues that are of relevance to community there. It doesn't understand that in the same way that a local journalist would. And then final editorial judgments. So an example, you might have us be working on a story about City Council holding a meeting regarding the new local budget allocation for roads. AI could help you to come up with catchy headlines for that, to try different headlines. So there might be your original headline on the left, which is quite a plain headline might not, I mean, it summarizes the story as it should, but at a high level, but it doesn't really encourage the user to click on it. It's kind of boring. So you might use AI to help you come up with more interesting headlines. Potholes or progress, what the new city budget means for your commutes. Council approves sweeping road repair budget after contentious vote. The millions spent to fix our roads and who's paying for it. So all of those headlines are kind of more likely to be clicked on to get attention than the more traditional style of headline that you see on the left. And you're not misleading anyone. You're not publishing any falsehoods or anything there. It's just better options for headlines. So you've got to catch attention on social media. Obviously, we all know it's very hard to catch attention on social media. So without being clickbaity, we can still tweak our headline style using AI to hopefully appeal to more people. So AI for amplification, not authorship. The bottom there, that's the rule. Use AI to tweak your amplification, not to author the story. And the AI suggests those variations, and the human editor still makes the final decision of. So the human's still in the loop. The human is still making the decisions. Okay, now we're getting into a sort of an intro into Google Notebook LM, I guess, because as we know, AI tends to hallucinate. It wants to please us. It sort of makes up things which even found their way into our national AI policy documents, as we saw quite embarrassingly a couple of days and weeks ago. So how can we avoid that? By using closed systems, right? Supplying the AI with documents and data that you already know to be reliable. You know where that came from. Data provenance is important. So you can feed the AI, say, a PDF, a long 50-page report, and then ask it to summarize key findings of certain sections in that document, for example, rather than asking the AI to search the internet and tell me what the mayor said about the budget in 2021. You can do that, but you must be very careful then about verification, because the AI will just come back with a fast answer that might not be 100% correct. There are ways around that, like asking it to check itself, asking it to verify itself, putting it in deep thinking mode, deep research mode. There are some guardrails there, and we'll talk about some of those. But first prize is to give the AI specifically the sources that you want it to work with, and Notebook is really good at doing that. Okay, so just to summarize that, the traffic lights, green, yellow, red. What is safe? What is green with using AI in a newsroom? Summarizing long documents or transcripts, generating interview question ideas, and even using things like Canva, which has really come a long way now. Using Canva templates for quick social media content creation. Yellow, proceed with caution. Data analysis and working with spreadsheets. It can sometimes miss rows or skip data. I've noticed that, and that becomes quite unreliable when you have to check it all the time. So just really be careful when doing mission critical data analysis, financial stuff, etc. Translating for multilingual audiences. This can be useful, but it also can be tricky when we think about native speaker nuances. Sometimes when you use AI to translate into languages that it doesn't have much data on, it doesn't do such a good job. So translation should never be published as is. And red, do not automatically publish anything from the AI to the web or your socials without a human review. Also very important, don't put confidential sources or unreleased investigative data into public AI models. This is quite dangerous. The way around that would be to install a local model on your local network. Okay, so I've been running a prompt crafting channel on WhatsApp for a couple of weeks now, and one of the updates there has been about the efficiency irony, right? So we're saying, oh, AI can save us so much time, so we can work quicker now and smarter, but then we lose a lot of time, on what's called the hallucination tax. So we lose time trying to verify what the AI has been doing. So that's a kind of an irony and a paradox that we're being faced with now. Yes, it accelerates workflows, but it might also cause us to spend more time on verifying that stuff. So that's why we should not treat AI as an author, but rather treat AI as an analyst for best results. Going back to the AI policy documents that I mentioned earlier, the SAH draft national AI policy. I'm sure you all saw this fiasco when it came out, but last month the minister withdrew that document. It's 86-page draft national AI policy document after it had been approved by various layers of verification, supposedly cabinet level verification. It was going to be gazetted, and then News 24 had a deeper look, and their investigation showed that this document actually included a bunch of studies and references that actually don't exist. They sound compelling, they sound convincing because the AI wants to impress, but didn't actually exist. And as you can imagine, that is a serious problem for any formal document or policy to have references, citations that not even don't match up, but just don't exist. So sometimes it's cited journals that do exist, so that might seem compelling. Anyone looking at that might think, okay, well, if it's in this journal, then it must be true. But yeah, what the AI did there was actually invent papers that didn't exist from journals that do exist. So that's just an example of how easy it is for stuff like this to slip through cracks. That's super embarrassing for the national AI policy document to have such serious AI generated flaws. Okay, so before we jump into Notebook, but another part of the philosophy that I'm trying to communicate here is to do less sort of chatting with the AI and more structured kind of engineering. If you think about it like that, so less random and more calculated. A more sort of an example of the chatting approach where we sort of more passive is write a story about the elections. Okay, that's super vague. It will write you a story, but it won't know what to focus on. It won't have any data to draw from. It doesn't know who your audience is. It doesn't know what the issues are. A better way to use AI if you're doing a story on elections is something like a prompt that says something like extract verifiable claims from this specific PDF. Then you're acting much more as a journalist. You're looking for potentially contentious points in that document or claims that will need to be further investigated and verified. In the chatting approach, you get the AI to just write the article, whereas in the engineering approach, the AI doesn't write the article, but it helps to give you a picture of the story, build a timeline, index all the research that you've done, structure your research so that you basically organize your papers on your desk, if you can put it like that. And then on the left again, the last one, a passive approach would be to blindly copy and paste text that the AI generates. But a more calculated approach would be forcing the AI to cite exact page numbers. Where did it get that quote? Where did it get that reference, that number? And Notebook LM is really good at that, in showing you exactly where in your source material does that claim come from. Okay, but before we get started on Notebook LM, I want to just bring our attention to some of the settings inside these AIs like ChatGPT and Gemini. There's some settings which you might not know about, which make a huge difference to the outputs that you get and how the AI works with you. So I'm just going to jump over into the browser window. Let me just change the sharing thing here. Okay. I'm just going to share my whole screen. in the chat that everyone's still happy. Cool. Okay, here we go. Let's go to yeah. So in ChatGPT, right, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. This is the home screen. On the right here, you'll see there's an instant mode and a thinking mode and configure. This is really important. Normally it defaults to instant, so it gives to minimize their server and compute resources and to give you a suitable answer or satisfactory answer as quick as possible. But sometimes we need to go deeper. So here we turn on thinking and then standard or extended. Obviously, if you turn on this, it takes longer, but it gives you a much more thoroughly researched response. So we don't always need that. If we're asking about the weather tomorrow, we can go with instance. If we're asking about deep details in parties or municipalities, IDP, about a certain topic, then we would turn on thinking and probably extended here. So that's that. And then if we go into configure, sorry, not configure. If you click on your little profile button here and you go to personalization, this is important. And I found this to be really useful because until about a month ago or a few weeks ago, I was just using defaults, right, in personalization. Then I turned off certain things or dialed them down a bit. So under characteristics, you can see here, warmth, enthusiasm, headers, and emoji. So warmth, right? Normally it's set, all these things are set to default normally, but I've turned warmth to less because I want its responses to be more professional and factual. Normally, you know, in default mode, it's super friendly and chatty and like everything's amazing. Wow, you know, you had cornflakes for breakfast. That's amazing. Oh my word, you're working on a story for elections. You're a good journalist. So that becomes a bit irritating and cheesy sometimes. So we can dial that down by turning it from warmth to less, and then enthusiastic as well, from more energy and excitement down to calmer and more neutral. Headers and lists as well. Maybe you prefer more bulleted lists and headers and so, or you could turn that to less or default. I prefer that on default. And then I've also told it to tone down the emoji use. So instead of emojis all over the place, which can get a bit distracting, I've got it on less. So the key sliders here are warmth and enthusiasm. And I find just for professional work and for getting serious, you know, things done without unnecessary fluff and over friendliness, we turn warmth to less, and we turn enthusiasm to less as well, which makes it calmer and more neutral. So I find that helps a lot with ChatGPT. You can also add custom instructions here where you can tell it like how to respond. You can add things like always verify your responses, always double check any quotes you give me, make sure that all references are accurate. You know, you can tell it there to do that for every chat. Gemini also has similar features. So that's your warmth and your enthusiasm. Yeah. And deep thinking mode also helps in conjunction with those parameters I went through to give you more accurate outputs, because then you force it to evaluate its outputs before it displays them. So then also in the updates channel, I talk about a thing called the RCCF engine or the RCCF framework. The RCCF stands for role, context, constraints, and format. RCCF. If you're wondering how to structure your prompts or how to build better prompts, then this is a good framework to use. Here's an example prompt at the top here. You are a senior SA political analyst. That's the role. Okay, that's the persona. You're telling the AI to assume the persona of being a senior SA political analyst covering coalition shifts. That's the role. The context. I am reviewing award level I'm reviewing ward level results for KZN. Okay, that's what I'm doing. The constraints or the rules, the things, the rules that the AI has to observe. Use essay English, so no Americanisms. Highlights unverified facts in bold. Do not invent outside data. So you can see how it's helping you there to identify things that would need further verification or attention by highlighting those things, those facts, unverified facts in bold. Do not invent any outside data. And then F, the format, the output is how you want the content to be generated or delivered back to you. So I want my output is going to be a markdown table comparing candidates' statements. So this prompt covers RCCF, role, expert, analyst. Context is what am I doing? I'm reviewing ward level results for KZN. And what are the rules, the constraints? What do you want the AI to do? I want you to use essay English. I want you to highlight unverified facts in bold and do not invent outside data. And then the output, I want a table that compares candidate statements. Another useful tactic or skill or habit for journalists to get into is to ask the AI to interview you. So we're all used to thinking about how do we prompt the AI? What do we ask the AI? But we don't think enough about what should the AI ask us? How should the AI prompt us? We kind of have to help the AI to help us, right? So it's not about you being a better writer necessarily. It's about being a better interviewee. Let the AI interrogate you first. So an example prompt at the bottom here would be something like, I'm working on a story about coalition shifts in the metros, and you might want to paste your draft for the AI below the prompt. Do not provide any analysis or drafts yet. Instead, ask me 6 to 8 targeted questions about my specific angle, the evidence I already have, and the local nuances I want to explore. Only once I answer, begin the research phase. So that's an interesting approach because you're not asking it to generate anything for you. You're asking it to ask you questions as if it were an editor asking you questions about your story, about your angle, the data that you have, the evidence that you have, any local nuances or interesting story hooks and angles that you might want to explore. So that's super, super helpful. It's like walking into the editor's office, sitting down and saying, listen, I've got this story I'm working on, but I'm stuck here. I'm not sure about this evidence that I have or this claim. And then the editor says, okay, let's have a look, and I'm going to ask you some questions about your story now. So just a kind of a shift in mindset in how we use the AI, asking it to ask us questions, because there might be some blind spots that we haven't, thought about. And this also prevents the AI from just putting out draft story that it's not really what we want. We don't want it to produce the draft. We want it to help us to produce the draft. Another important thing to be aware of about AI is that it's very sycophantic. What does that mean? It means that it always wants to please you, right? And of course, we like to be pleased. We like it when people agree with us. We like it when people think that our ideas are great. But someone thinking that your idea is great doesn't mean that your idea is great. So we've got to keep our egos in check there. And of course, the AI, the guys who make these AI products and tools and platforms want us to use it as much as possible so that they make as much money as possible. And they're thinking that by being warm and friendly and enthusiastic and affirming about everything we do, that we're going to use it more. And maybe that's true for the general population, but as journalists, we have to guard against that. So expect almost the AI, treat it as kind of like a questionable source. We should always be skeptical. So you've got to force it to be difficult. And you can be quite forceful with it. So for example, in a prompt, you might say, do not agree with me. Review this government press release and my drafted response and find 3 logical holes in my arguments. So you're specifically asking it to find weaknesses there, not just saying, here's my story, write a headline, or here's my story, what do you think? But asking it to be that stickler of an editor who's going to find holes in your text or in your argument. Okay, so before we jump over into Notebook LM, the whole idea of using Notebook LM and the whole approach I try to teach when doing AI trainings is how to avoid falling into the sycophantic trap, but also the hallucination trap. How can we use AI in a way that is free of hallucinations in a trustworthy way? And the short answer is to make sure that the data it's drawing from is what you want it to be. So the PDFs, the slideshows, the YouTube recordings, the images, the audio, any material that you want to work with should upload into a closed system so that the AI can just work with that. Obviously, going out to the internet when it needs to, but starting off in that closed system can really help to minimize hallucination. So we're going to go into Notebook and look at how this works now. Going to quickly go back to the meeting window and see that everyone is still happy. Is everyone still happy? We've got 16 people. That's good. All right, let's go back to the browser. Okay, so this is Notebook LM, which is a Google tool. So essentially, it's in the engine behind it is still Gemini, but it's not the Gemini that you know from the web like this. It's more of a closed system where you can upload your own documents or use the source finder tool here to add your own sources. So essentially it works in 3 panels. On the left is your panel for sources. In the middle is your panel for chatting with those sources in the way that you're used to chatting with an AI on Gemini or ChatGPT. And on the right is the studio panel where you can generate outputs based on what you have conversed with the AI about, based on those sources. So audio outputs, you can do a video overview, slides, mind maps, flashcards, reports, quizzes, infographics, and data tables. Super useful for navigating large bodies of documents to help you with your story production or just understanding a topic, just for self-learning about anything. This is a really useful system. So it's great for academics, great for journalists. So I made this new notebook. I've called it 2026 SA Local Governments Elections. And what I did is, instead of uploading my own PDFs, I used the search function here to search the web for reliable sources for this. So my prompt was something like guidelines for journalists covering the 2026 South African local government elections. And I turned on deep research mode as opposed to fast research. And it takes about 5-6 minutes because it does what it says on the tin. It does a deep search on the web. You can also search your own Google Drive. Super interesting. So if you know you've got documents sitting in there from years ago and you want to bring them all into one place, you can use a prompt to search your Google Drive and add certain documents as sources to your source collection here. So I did a deep research. It found a bunch of authoritative sources. Here is a comprehensive operational and ethical guidelines for community journalists covering there's another one from SANEF, Elections 2024 Training Modules, MDDA 2024, a piece on AI Trust and Resilience from Joan.coza, some more SANEF documents, SANEF coming up a lot here, that's good. the FCDO Media Freedom Reports, guidelines of media coverage of elections in the SADC region. There's the IEC website. There are certain statements from governments. There's the IEC's News and Information Center. So a very comprehensive list of sources here, all geared towards helping journalists cover the 2026 local government elections. So it gives me a summary here in the chat of what these sources are. Provided docs give a comprehensive look at the 2024 national elections and the upcoming local government elections in November. Okay, it's giving some context from 2024 and looking ahead to 2026. So I can ask the chat now. It's got suggested questions. How did the introduction of independent candidates impact South Africa's elections? What steps is IEC taking to combat disinfo online? How is tech, like voter management devices, modernizing the voting process? So those are suggested questions, or I can ask it my own question. So I'm going to ask it something like, what advice do the sources give about using AI in journalism? Now it's synthesizing across all these web pages and PDF guides here. There's about 30 or 40 of them. And, you know, as a human, to collect all these documents and read them all and think about them all and make notes, take you days, you know, whereas the AI is just doing it in a couple of seconds here. So it's analyzing all those docs. Okay, so it's now synthesized information from all of those sources, specifically around what they're saying about using AI in reporting. So it's saying that the documents say be transparent with the audiences. If you're using a tool to produce an image or so forth, you should inform your readers by adding a disclaimer. Now, where is it getting that recommendation from? Not from its thumb, but from here, this citation. It's for everything that it says, it's got a citation here. So this point 1 is from an article on the journalism.co.za website. View source, if I click view source, it will open up the full source and show me where in that text did it get that information from. Super useful for making sure that everything you have can be referenced and cited, and it's not just thumbsucked. Number 2, maintain human oversight and judgment. All AI-generated content must be carefully checked by humans before publication. Yes, where's that coming from? Source 2, which is in fact the same document, same story from the journalism.co.za story. Using AI as an assistant, not a replacement. And you can see where it's pulling that from. Enhance accessibility, guard against bias, protect data and source confidentiality, foster a culture of experiment and training, treat AI as a journalistic beat. So pretty useful how it's pulled all that together as a synthesis from the sources on the left here. As I said, this tool is useful for testing your own knowledge on things, right? So I've gone ahead and generated some multimedia here on the right based on all of these different sources here. There's actually 46 sources here. So say I wanted to quiz myself or test myself about best practices for, maybe I wanted to run a training for my staff, my junior staff, maybe on how to report responsibly on the election. So maybe I want to make a quiz for them. So by hitting the quiz button in the panel, we can create a quiz. So this is what it would look like. I've pre-generated this to make it a bit full screen. So now it's instantly got a multiple choice quiz here for me. What was the primary reason for the temporary leaderboard blackouts during the 2024 national and provincial elections? Interesting. A coding error during the optimization of data, hardware failure, sophisticated external cyber attack, intermittent load shedding. I can't actually remember what caused that blackout. Let's go with A. Okay, it was. And then it explains to me why that's the correct answer. Investigations revealed that a specific error in the code used for data replication caused the failure to display information on public-facing applications. Okay, so I learned something there. Let's go to the next question. According to the 2024 report, okay, it doesn't say which report, what was the significant change introduced by the Electoral Amendment Act of 2023? I do not know. Nice question, nice answer options here. Let's go with allowing independent candidates to contest for seats in the national and provincial legislature. Lucky guess. This historic reform followed a constitutional court judgment allowed for individuals not affiliated with parties to stand for election at these levels for the first time. Interesting. So now I'm building my knowledge as a journalist, building key context going into the local election later in the year. Here we go. What's the official date set for the upcoming LGE? Okay, I know that it's in November, so this one's easy. So let me go with November. There we go. Next question. What specific technical challenge slowed down the voting process at some stations on election day in 2024? The running out of ballot papers, coding challenges, failure of the ballot templates, total loss of GSM network connectivity for all voter management devices. Just like that would be crazy, but it actually did happen. Actually, sorry, I clicked on yeah, that's not right. It didn't happen. It's telling me that the correct answer is B. There was a coding problem in the voting devices. Next. Okay, so you get the point here. It's quiz to quiz yourself, or if you want to make a quiz for your audience, it's a nice thing to put on your websites. People can read a story or guide to the elections, and then you can create a quiz for them, and you can customize the quiz by customizing the prompt here. Saying create a quiz specifically about let's think the use of AI in reporting about local elections. Okay, how difficult do you want it? Easy, medium, hard. Number of questions, less, standard or more. Let's go with that. And because this is just a text-based output, it's going to do it quite quickly. But while it does that, let's look at some of the other types of outputs that it can do for you. This is a mind map. So if you're sort of a visual person, you want to see how things are networked together, this is useful. Let's drill into the 26 local government elections. So I click on that. Oops, it's gone back. Let's click. Yeah, so that expands to planning, regulatory framework, security and integrity. Maybe we're doing a story on security and integrity of the elections and the processes. So we can drill down into that. And it's giving me some more layers here. Cybersecurity risk mitigation, SAPS personnel shortfall, anti-disinformation measures. So let's imagine I'm a journalist writing a story on disinformation in the lead up to the elections. Huge problem, massive, concern is disinformation narratives coming out. So let's click on this, anti-disinformation measures. It brings us back to the chat, and it says, it puts in a prompt there, discuss what these sources on the left say about the LGEs in the context of oh, hang on, sorry, I did the wrong thing there. Discuss what these sources say about anti-disinformation measures in the larger context of security and integrity within the context of the local government elections. So now it's scanning the text and it's finding out about how is the IAC planning on fighting disinfo? What are the best practices and recommendations for journalists who are trying to fight disinfo around the election? So while it thinks about that, we can go and look at our updated quiz here. Remember, we've asked it to make a quiz specifically about the use of AI. So the first question here, according to State of the Newsroom 2025 reports, that report now is one of my sources. That's like a 100-page comprehensive document about the state of the newsroom, trends and so forth. And so it's drawing from this How did the publication Daily Maverick use Gen AI to increase audience engagement? Okay. Did they produce concise synopses? They do that on their site. Replacing human editors with AI-driven content schedulers? I would hope not. Creating fictional deepfake interviews for entertainment? I would hope not. Automating on-the-ground investigative reporting? I would hope not. So I'm going to go with A. Yes, they used AI to generate concise synopses or summaries of complex investigations. Okay, let's go down to the next one. Okay, the Press Council's guidance on AI suggests that cost savings generated through AI efficiency should be directed toward what? Increasing executive bonuses, phasing out community media in favor of national AI, reinvesting in high quality journal, I would say that, or purchasing more sophisticated deepfake generation software. C, that's right, high quality journalism, etc., etc. So I think you get the point there of the quiz and how you can draw on multiple sources to test your own knowledge or give your readers a chance to test their knowledge in a fun, interactive way. It's now finished thinking about my query, which was what are the sources saying about anti-disinfo measures? And it's now summarized what's going on there. So it's got the Real 411 public complaints portal, a collaboration launched between the IC and MMA, functions as an independent public reporting platform where citizens can flag harms, etc., etc., etc. And then you'll notice the little citations here, exactly where it got this information from in my sources. It's talking about framework of cooperation with big tech. How do we cooperate with Meta, Google, and TikTok? Obviously, some of the Competition Commission stuff would be included there. Internal IEC monitoring and public awareness. So what has the IEC done? They've run some campaigns to boost digital literacy, urging citizens to rely on credible sources and verify information. Social media codes of conduct. Here it's referring to this document, Principles and Guidelines for the Use of Digital and Social Media in Elections in Africa. So this is really great for yourself to better understand the context of what you're reporting on. And you can ask it any follow-up questions here, and it suggests a few here. If you want to know more about the Real 411 portal or what are the legal challenges that the IEC has been facing from political parties, etc., etc. Let's look at some of the other outputs. We've looked at the quiz and the mind map. Another thing it can do is the flashcards, which would look like this. Also kind of like a quiz, but in a different format. Which specific legislation enacted in 2023 allowed independent candidates to contest South African national and government elections for the first time? Turn the card over and it says Electoral Amendments Act number 1 of 2023. So it's a flashcard, right? And you can ask it to explain that, and it will explain that in the chat panel. Next flashcards. What were the 3 types of ballot papers issued to voters in the last elections? So national, provincial, and regional. Cool. Next one. How many registered voters were on the certified voters roll for the last national elections? 27.8 million. So this can be a really useful way for you to get familiar with the contents of lots of documents at the same time. So super useful, not just for researching stuff, but also just for learning, learning more about any particular topic. So that's a flashcard. We've done the quiz. It can even generate tables. So it's generated a table. Oops, let me open that again. Okay. Yeah, it's got a table showing it's putting together a column for metrics like registered voters, turnouts, total votes cast, independent candidates, coverage for per party media coverage share, and spoiled ballots, etc., etc. Anything that's measurable and which data is available for, it's got there. Then it's got the value. So registered voters, 27.7 million, turnouts, 58%, 70 parties contesting. DA got about 14% of the media coverage, special votes. So this you could use as raw data to generate an infographic, for example, quite easily and quite quickly on the topic of your choice. Obviously, way too much here for one infographic, but you could hone in on something from here. A description of what that metric is, previous comparison, so previous year if relevant. So in the previous election period. If it cannot find that in the source, it will say not in source. It doesn't make it up. It doesn't try and please you by putting a date there that it's not sure of. If it doesn't find that in the source, it doesn't put it in the table. All these figures coming directly from those sources. All those sources listed below here. There, the citations there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It tells you which source has been used for which data. And those full sources you can go and find back in your source panel over here. So it's about having that closed system of data that you're working with. And if the AI can't find something or doesn't know something, it will say. And that's what's really nice about Notebook LM. It's a table. This would be an infographic. So I told it just to make an infographic based on all these sources, which obviously isn't very specific. So this infographic is going to be quite dense and cluttered. But there you go. Pretty nice looking infographic. Telling us about gender splits, voter turnouts, electoral staff, key dates, when is the registration weekend, when is the election day, digital first vote update. So that's what it's chosen to put into the infographic. I could instruct it to make an infographic about one specific topic. Maybe I need an infographic about the ballot papers, what they are, how to use them, what the different fields mean. I could ask it to make that. I could ask it to make an infographic about the gender splits or anything really, according to the story that I'm working on. So that's the infographic output. And then we get to the really fun stuff, the audio and the video. So Notebook can actually generate an overview video about your sources or about a particular topic in those sources. So it's generated the following video about all the sources together. So let's have a look at what it's managed to make.
Welcome back. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today. We have a genuinely fascinating explainer lined up for you. We're going to build a structural bridge between the historic 2024 South African national elections and the rapidly approaching local government elections, which are officially set for November 4th, 2026. Now, if you're someone who likes to zoom out, see the big picture, and understand how the complex gears of democracy actually turn behind the scenes, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down the logistics, the major rule changes, and the sheer monumental effort it takes to secure a nationwide vote. Okay, let's quickly hit today's agenda. We'll start with the historic 2024 national elections, then move into changing the rules, followed by...
So that's a 9 minutes video, which is put together explaining some of the key concepts and principles, I guess, in the sources.
Highly charged campaign period. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the Department of Home Affairs is juggling the...
Just skipping through it a bit.
Under Section 139 of the Constitution, but even more drastically, they're developing schools. That's a problem. So, to prevent disrupting these crucial exams, the government and the IEC
Oops, I think my computer has frozen.
have agreed to declare Election Day, November 4th, 2026, a designated public holiday.
Yes, let's pause that video. Now, obviously, like with any output from AI, you must check it thoroughly before publishing. You don't want to just publish a video like this without double checking everything. But it should be good because it's got all that info from the sources directly. You might want to download this video and then mute it and record your own voiceover instead of having the generic American AI voice on that video. So it's got really nice visuals for you here.
The IEC managed to successfully navigate every single one of the...
You don't necessarily have to use, the AI voice here. And to make it more humanized,
3 of them,
I would really recommend like downloading this, bringing it into whatever video editor you choose, and recording your own voiceover. where you explain
to November campaign.
the concepts here, and then it might be ready for publication, or just to use for internal training. You might want to require your staff to watch a video like this. It's 10 minutes long, to instantly boost their knowledge about how elections work and the road to
Historically younger demographic
in November this year. So that's pretty cool. Other thing it can do is audio generation, where it has two AI hosts, sort of like podcast style, where they talk about your sources or about any topic that you instruct them to talk about. You can also interrupt them at any time in interactive mode and actually sort of join in as a kind of a guest on that podcast, which is pretty crazy.
in the nation's
See
entire
how that
history.
works.
Right, we're talking about mobilizing tens of millions of people here.
Exactly. Tens of millions of people, all
So we click on interactive mode and let them start. And then as soon as I want to join, I can click join.
So imagine trying to organize the biggest, most complex event in a nation's entire history.
Right, we're talking about mobilizing tens of millions of people here.
Exactly. Tens of millions of people,
Yeah, so now I'm
all
gonna
participating
join in.
simultaneously
Welcome to the
across.
podcast.
Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Hi there. I just want to know, when are the elections taking place this year?
Oh, welcome to the conversation. We are so glad you chimed in with that.
It is the most important question for any voter, isn't it?
So specifically for the local government elections, President Ramaphosa has announced November 4th, 2026.
That is the big
Yeah.
date to circle on your calendar for the municipal level.
But, it's interesting you asked about this year specifically.
Right, because we just came out of the 2024 national and provincial elections.
Those happened on May 29th, and they were a massive, massive undertaking.
Exactly. So right now we are actually in the
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
What's your number one tip for journalists covering the local elections this year? What's your number one piece of advice?
That is a fantastic question, and honestly so crucial for the upcoming 2026 local cycle.
If I had to pick just one, it is all about the citizens' agenda.
Exactly. That means focusing on things like water, housing, and unemployment instead of just party drama.
Essentially, do not let the politicians.
Okay, so you see how I was able to join essentially that conversation in real time and speak to those podcast hosts about anything in the source material, which is pretty powerful. So maybe you're tired of looking at a screen, you're tired of having to keep your eyes open all the time working with AI. So you could actually just use this feature with your screen off, and you can be walking around, washing the dishes, whatever, as you would normally do when listening to a podcast, except now you can actually jump in sort of in real time dynamically and talk to those AI hosts about anything in your source material, which I think is pretty powerful. Yeah. Any questions at this point about Notebook LM? Anyone finding this potentially really useful, or is already using Notebook LM, or doesn't like Notebook LM? Anyone want to jump in now?
Michael, let me start, because I think we're also probably running out of time, but I think we can add another 10 minutes or so for questions.
Yeah.
Can I sort of backtrack all the way to the start? And I'm just going to fire away with 3 questions. Firstly, your choice of AI assistant. When you sort of showed ChatGPT, you referred to Gemini, and then sort of went into a more specialized one, which is Notebook LM. Personally, I prefer for normal searches Claude. But so the first question, which one would you recommend for basic journalism work? And let's start with grammar checking, which is probably where we use it the most, and then for searching for information. Tied to that also, is it worth paying for the AI assistants? I think the majority of us just use the free stuff.
Yeah.
The second question I've got is I was quite intrigued by you saying that confidential sources should not be sort of like leaked to the AI. What do you mean by that? What are the dangers? And this sort of also back to Notebook Ellen. I mean, if I sort of put in like a document received, let's say a letter received from a whistleblower, what are the dangers involved in that? And then lastly, specifically on Notebook, I've used it for infographics a few times, but it's terrible at spelling. I mean, it just produces sometimes gibberish. And is there a way that you can actually edit it because it generates it and it misspells stuff? It just goes, it's got a mind of its own. Anyway, so I'm firing away, and then hopefully there are more people with questions.
Just work through those in reverse, I guess. It's in Notebook. So it's interesting that you're finding a lot of spelling errors. So is that recently that you've encountered that, or quite a while ago now? Because they have improved that a lot.
That's about 2 weeks ago, and my version says beta, where I notice on the screen yours doesn't say beta.
Yeah. So, and then that points to your other question about paying for these models as well. So I do pay for a Google AI subscription, the basic one. It's called Pro, I think. And yeah, maybe that gives me access to a more refined infographic model. It could be the case, I'm not sure. If yours says beta, then that would explain it. But if I click on the infographic that it produced for me here, let's just load it up and then zoom in a bit. Let's have a look for spelling errors. Yeah, I'm not seeing any over here. And maybe there we go. Gender speeds. That's good. That should be an L, not an I. So there's one. But sometimes, yes, it's true. Sometimes the spelling error does creep in. We've gotten a lot better in Notebook Element as well as in Gemini. Especially if you're using the Nano Banana model, the most recent one, it's become much better at eliminating spelling errors. I remember in the early days, like on ChatGPT, it was a mess. It was completely unusable, the spelling. But this is pretty almost close to being usable. There's only one tiny mistake I found here, gender speed. What you can do, if you notice a spelling error, is ask it you can edit it by clicking on, where is it now? There's supposed to be a button here that lets you revise what it's done. I don't see that here, but you can ask it to revise the outputs and to fix the spelling errors. Alternatively, you can even take it into something like Canva and do edits there. You can feed it into Gemini and ask it to fix the errors. That's worked quite well for me in the past by taking the outputs and feeding it into something else and asking it to fix something. But generally, I found the error rates is going less and less as they improve the models. And yes, it might be true. It might be true that a paid version of a model it uses better models and produces less errors. So I would say yes, it does make sense to pay something for the AI if you want high quality results and if you're using it on a daily basis in your workflow. I think it's about 250 Rand, I think, a month for the Gemini Pro. And it really quickly pays for itself. So I think there's some, not many newsrooms can afford to spend very much at all on anything at all, really, apart from the basics. But I'm of the opinion that 250, 300 Rand a month would pay for itself time and time again in terms of efficiencies and outputs in the newsroom. In terms of which AI to use, I find that there's no one size fits all. And I find I find that I'll switch between different tools, different models as I go, as I sort of get a feel for it. It's kind of like cooking, I guess. You say which brand of pasta is the best. Well, they kind of will all give you a reasonably good pasta dish at the end of the day, but you might have learned experience where a certain brand is better, a certain type of tomato is better, tomato, potato. So they'll all get the job done, but as you use them with time, you'll sort of get a feel for which ones do better things. I mean, I don't even use Claude that much at all. because I find I've developed techniques on getting what I want out of ChatGPT and Gemini by doing things like turning on thinking mode, deep research mode, by dropping the excitement and the enthusiasm. So yeah, I don't think there's a blanket, solution or statement that says Claude is the best or Gemini is the best. It really depends on the scenario. Yeah, I hope that sort of answers. And what was your third question?
Just one about the confidential sources. And then we
Oh,
can
yeah,
go
yeah.
through this.
So I mean, look, we're kind of forced to use the internet in our work, and anything we do on the internet is a potential risk. There's no such thing as 100% privacy or security. Any system can get hacked, any system can be compromised at any time, and I guess that's one of the risks, we take in using the internet. But there are measures we can take to improve that. For example, if you do have a document from a source that contains sensitive information, I would potentially redact any phone numbers or email addresses or names or addresses, bank details, financial records, anything like that. I would first redact from the document before uploading it to Notebook or to Gemini or to whatever. So that in the case that document does become compromised, at least there's no names mentioned, there's no figures, but you can still usefully use the AI to work with that document. So that's what I would advise on that. Yeah. The third one, which is a bit more technically complicated, would be to install a local model that does not have internet access on a machine in your newsroom, and you can then feed the documents to that model running locally, and there's no way that data can get back out onto the internet. So that's an option. Obviously, it's a bit more complex and tricky because you're working with an offline computer and an offline model. So then, how do you transfer that work to a computer that does have internet, for example, without potentially compromising it? But that's what I would recommend, is to redact highly sensitive info that should not be, you cannot risk having out there. Redact that info before uploading the doc, and or use a closed offline system for maximum security.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I think we've got a few, like we can take a few more, maybe one or two other questions. I don't know if
Sure.
any of the others that want to sort of fire away with questions.
Sure.
Raise your hands. While we're waiting, maybe just on following on. Oh, we've got Chris. Yes, Chris, go for it.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, so thank you so much for the session. It's very helpful. I just want to, I'm looking at it from a small community media newsroom. And also perhaps you might give us some ideas on how, you can build maybe an agent that you don't have to go through certain prompts all the time.
Yes,
And
yes.
also understanding the kind of resources that they have already, which are very limited. And I'm just thinking in terms of publishers that are out there, what other opportunities or platforms or people or organizations that can assist in actually doing the engineering for you, or perhaps you developing some kind of I call it a cheat sheet, coming from the gaming days, but maybe it's like a document that they can just copy and paste, or have a Word document that is like, okay, when I'm covering this kind of article, these are the kind of prompts that I should use. Because I'm mindful of the fact as well that there's a language issue here. Most of the time you're speaking in English. However,
Yes.
I dream in English because I took English first language. However, when I'm angry at someone, I speak Xhosa. All right. So at the end of the day, for me, it's all about, what do you dream in? What are you writing in when you're
Yeah.
conceptualizing? Are you conceptualizing in Xhosa, or are you
Yes.
conceptualizing in English? And how do you relay that now to an English-based model or English-based large
Yeah.
language model to kind of get your point across? So I know there's frustrations as well. when it comes to not getting exactly what you want to get done. But I think for practical purposes, and just to summarize my question again, is are there cheat sheets that are available for prompts? Are there different organizations that are available to give the kind of expertise and advice and say, I can build you a model that you can just have running, not connected to the internet, running on your computer, and then you can run those things. So just practical things. It's a lot that I'm throwing out there, but I'm just thinking from a practical point of view with the small newsrooms and the language barrier as well.
Yeah, that is a big question, and look, I'm sure there are dozens, if not hundreds, of organizations that are offering to do this and walk through the challenges with you. I know there is quite a lot of work being done on local language or African continent-wide language models and solutions for AI. So that's, I mean, yeah, the AI is generally getting better over time at translation work and language work, but it's obviously still not perfect, especially for the smaller languages. But there are organizations, I don't know them by name right now, I need to research it a bit, who are specifically working on building models that are very competent, not in English necessarily, but in other languages. So, Chris, yeah, I'm happy to do some more research into that, and we can, I can message you after the call or later or whatever, and I'm happy to also build essentially what you call a cheat sheet. In fact, I do have a few that I've already got lying around from sessions with my DNTF trainees. So happy to share those and other resources, and we can even create a shared notebook where we look for this kind of help and resources and make it a collaborative thing. Something else I've been working on very recently is a tool. I haven't decided on its name yet, but it's going to look something like this. Let me just close this preview. And this is it's going to be a co-pilot sort of tool. I won't call it that, but that's essentially what it is for journalists covering the elections. It's going to look like this. I'm hoping the preview loads. There we go. There's kind of a command center for helping journalists cover the elections. This is what it's going to be about. I'm going to feed it with a whole bunch of data right down to a ward level, the 4,400 wards, and then you can explore on a map those different wards, and you can drill down into a certain area, a province, a metro, or a district, and then a ward. Load the profile for that ward, find out if there's any protest hotspots, any tender awards in that ward which might be worth reporting on. It's going to include a document simplifier here, particularly for elections documents, for example, IDPs or AG reports or audit reports. You can upload any document like that here, and it will then give you a simplification of that and any particular focus. It's got a claim scanner here built in, so you can copy and paste a claim and then scan it if that's being flagged as disinfo. It's going to have a translator. I mentioned language, so you can put in your source text, and then it can do a translation into any of the official South African languages here on the right. Hopefully, hopefully it gets it right, but obviously the human must check that. It's going to have an interview prep tool where you can put in the ward that you're covering or the municipality, and then some keywords as to what you're covering, and it can help you generate interview questions. So, and then it's just got a chat component as well, where you can talk with it through what you're working on. So that's kind of what I'm working on as a tool for journalists, and hopefully that's going to be of use. Any other questions?
I think there are actually quite a lot, but it's
Time is always of the essence. Yeah.
A follow-up session. I think Valen's hands up, and he's probably already thinking in terms of a follow-up session, because I think there's just so much.
There's so much, yeah.
You touched on a few, which I think we're thankful for. Valen, yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Anton. Good morning once again, Michael. I think you've actually answered that question. But then the other thing is, yeah, please do share those resources. Please, and then we will circulate it with our publishers. And then the other thing, I just wanted to remind publishers to actually join your WhatsApp channel, the one that you just circulated. I just want to remind them about that as well. But then, yeah, my question actually, it's regarding, I'm hoping it's not a sensitive question in terms of the DNTF. You've touched on that. And then I just wanted to ask you, what has surprised you the most when it comes to journalists using AI? What is it that what that actually surprised you? And then the second question is more or less on AI in terms of what kind of habits should every journalist have starting from today or start developing? And then the last one is just on the AI trends. What should publishers actually prepare for in the next coming couple of years when it comes to AI? Thanks.
Thanks. It's difficult really just to know what to prepare for because we don't know. As Anton said, like what was valid and useful maybe a few months ago is maybe not anymore. So it's really, really difficult to speculate on the future of AI. But one thing I'm concerned about, and I don't see a solution to, and what worries me is that if the AI models are learning from what's on the internet, and if what's on the internet is increasingly AI slop, then doesn't it hold that the AI models increasingly are drawing from dodgy information or misinformation, unchecked information? Because so many people are publishing AI slop now just for clicks and for monetization, and it's not being checked properly, it's not being verified. So if all that stuff is getting ingested into the body of knowledge that the AI is crawling, then to me that's a bit problematic. So are we fighting a losing battle in terms of to what extent we can trust the AI? I hope not. The optimist in me hopes not. The realist in me thinks that might be the case, and the pessimist in me says it's just going to get worse and it's going to become harder and harder to be a journalist in this sort of post-truth world. So that's something that concerns me. But maybe it's a slightly cynical approach, but I think we have to be real about this. We can't just say AI is amazing and it's helping us so much and everyone's going to be a winner at the end of the day. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, what was your first question?
So my first question was in terms of the DNTF, what has
yeah.
surprised you the most on how journalists are using AI?
What has surprised me the most is that techniques and sort of basic techniques and tactics, I guess, for using AI seems to have not been adopted or incorporated or experimented with even by some publishers. Most journalists and people you speak to, they're familiar with what is ChatGPT and what are the basics you can do with it, but not many of them are thinking in terms of strategies like asking the AI to interview you, for example, which is a really powerful way of using it, or the RCCF framework, the role, the context, the output formats, and etc. That's a nice way of structuring how you use AI as well. So I guess what surprised me the most or concerns me the most is the sort of the haphazard way that a lot of journalists are using the tools, and they're not using it in a structured way. What is a structured way of using AI? Well, it's those things I outlined in the slideshow. So yeah, I'll share those slides with you as well, and then a couple of extra additional resources. Also happy to continue talking through this stuff with anyone, anytime. If people want to join I've got a WhatsApp channel called Prompt Crafting for Journalists. Every few days I put out some advice there on strategies for using AI. And yeah, if anyone's interested in that tool I'm working on, also open to ideas for collab on that as well.
Thanks, Michael. I think what we should do is get some feedback from AIP publishers because I think there are quite a lot of questions and a lot of people, even in this group, I know sort of ask me more specific things. I mean, like, for instance, what is the best way to actually get it to do a proper grammar check, sort of increase the flow? Then also there's sort of issues such as you get a press release, and a lot of us are, I mean, this is about sustainability. The demands are on us to, as quickly as possible, work through news, and we've got brief news, and then we've got more in-depth stuff. But AI lends itself to also handling the quick stuff. But you just need to use a few techniques. But so my suggestion is we follow this up with another session which can focus on a few other aspects. And then one thing I want to throw in the pot is also the LLM's sort of use of all our data. I mean, it basically scrapes, and we, especially the small publishers, and this was discussed previously, there's no compensation for all the stories, all the content that is actually being taken from publishers. Somewhere along the line, it will have to stop, and we have to be more protective. But obviously, that's also another sort of issue. Johnson, maybe we can give you the last question. Fire away.
Okay, thank you very much, Anton. Yes, my question is on the prompting. I don't know whether I'm prompting wrong, or is there a way you find sometimes when I ask for AI, especially Gemini data music, to write an article on a specific topic, and then when it brings it back, you find it's a copy and paste of different sources.
Yeah.
So is it possible to make it write an original article? Because I see mostly it takes from other publications. Then I have to rewrite the whole thing again, which takes more time. But with AI, you can just simply, it does it in a few seconds. But the challenge is that it takes from other publications.
So I would recommend not just asking it to write a story about XYZ, but giving it information and documents that you've gathered already, research that you've done, interviews that you've done about XYZ. Feed it all that, like all your notebooks, everything all the research you've done about a story. I mean, we can't not research stories anymore. We still have to research stories, and we shouldn't ask the AI to write a story on XYZ just out of the blue. We should give it the information that we've already got, interview transcripts, supporting documentation, things like that, and then ask it to help us write the story, considering all of that data. That would be my advice. So use it as an assistant, as an engineer, not as an author. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Michael, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for everyone who attended. I think a lot of the journalists are only now starting to grasp how big an effect AI has on their lives. Some of them, I think a year ago, saw it as an odd tool, something like a little plaything. Yeah. Now it's part of our lives, but now it's the challenge is to use that tool. Yeah. And it's like, you've got this chainsaw, don't cut off your hand. Exactly. It's not the problem with the chainsaw. It's
there we go. Yeah.
So I think this is why, personally, I think there need to be another session, because it's so part of what we do. And if we don't have a lot of opportunities to be trained there. It's like a whole new field. Anyway, but yeah, thanks for your time, and thanks for all the effort you put in, and thanks for all the others. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Anton. Thanks, Michael. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Well.